Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. A few years ago I did a video titled Handling My Most Aggressive Boas, which has become one of my most popular videos. Today I thought it would be interesting to take out some of these boas a few years later and see how they're behaving these days, if they're still behaving aggressively or they calm down. I also have some boas I've acquired since then which are somewhat challenging to handle, so I'll take those out as well. This should be interesting. So going back to the early days of the Brian Boas YouTube channel, I made the video handling my most aggressive boas. And it became very popular. It's actually my third most watched video of all time. And I think a lot of people were just watching because they thought maybe I'd get bitten and there'd be blood and it would be very exciting. And it seems like that's a common strategy of snake YouTube channels. Get bit on camera, draw blood, go viral. But you know, I don't play those games, so I didn't get bit in the video, which I'm very pleased about. I'm not intending to get bit in today's video. Hopefully I won't. But I just wanted to start off by saying a lot of these snakes have mellowed out. This guy in particular. So sometimes baby boas are somewhat aggressive or defensive as babies, but they definitely calm down over time. And I'll tell you more about this guy in a few minutes. I also wanted to clarify some terms. Aggressive, what does this mean? When I use the term aggressive for describing my boas, a lot of people got up in arms. Not a lot of people, but a few people wrote to me and said it's not aggressive, it's defensive. And for the purposes of this video, I'm defining aggressive as any behavior that might result in bodily injury to myself. I'm not guessing the snake's intent. And I see the point here. Aggression in humans, we're talking about things like psychopaths and people who are pathological. These snakes are just behaving naturally, okay? They're basically just going on the survival instincts which have been programmed into their genes over millions of years of evolution. It makes sense for baby boas to act this way because, you know, in the wild, most of the baby boas end up as food for some other animal. So if they can behave a little more aggressively or defensively, they're much more likely to make it to adulthood and spread, you know, carry on their genes to the next generation. So this is no judgment. You know, if a boa is acting like this, it's not that there's anything wrong with the boa. This is just how they act. And as responsible pet owners and boa hobbyists, we need to be aware of this and sometimes adapt our behavior around the boas themselves. Not all boas are going to be, you know, tame shoulder pets or puppy dog tame or whatever term you want to use. But a lot of them do mellow out over time. I also briefly wanted to touch on the topic of getting bitten. Am I worried that I'm going to get bitten by one of these snakes? No, I'm not. And the reason is because the vast majority of bites I've gotten don't come from boas that act defensively or that I'm expecting a bite. It just comes from a boa that I'm not expecting to get bitten by, and turns out that it bites me. So most of the bites that happen are not aggressive or defensive bites. They're feeding bites. Okay, you're feeding your boas. The boas get really charged up, they smell the rodent in the air, and they're basically ready to go and ready to strike. Sometimes I've just opened the enclosure to, you know, feed the boa, and it strikes out at me real quickly because it thinks it's going to get fed. You know, other times I'll be kind of cleaning around in the enclosure, and my hand gets a little too close, and I think it's still out of range, but the boa manages to clear the distance and attack my hand. And in fact, that happened to me yesterday. You might see this scratch on my hand. This was a boa I was not expecting to get bitten by. This is a very tame, calm boa. I was just servicing the cage and my hand got a little too close, and I guess she was expecting a meal. But these more aggressive ones, the ones that hiss and that strike out, I'm really not worried about them because when you know a boa is going to behave this way, it's very easy to take steps to prevent being bitten. You know, the business end of the snake is right here. All you have to do is keep the business end of the snake away from your body. And that's not really that hard. And this is why these people on TV can handle all kinds of venomous snakes and make it look all dangerous, but really they know exactly what they're doing and they're not really in any danger of getting bitten. So with that said, you know, one other thing I wanted to mention is hopefully in this video, if you have a challenge with a snake that's like this, you might get some tips on how to handle it. And snakes, like any animals, can sense fear, okay? They can sense if someone is not comfortable handling them, and they're much more likely to act out if the handler has the negative energy that, you know, gets transferred to the snake. So basically just act like a tree, act like an inanimate object, and the snake is not going to bite you, because you know, snakes are never going to bite an inanimate object like a tree. So the first snake coming back from my earlier video, this is a Brazilian red tail from the Lemke line, bred by Vindruso, born back in 2016. And I actually have a pair of these. I'm not even sure if I showed the male or the female in the original video, but they both basically behave very similarly. They were very hissy, striking a lot. I couldn't really handle them. And this persisted for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years at least. And then they just gradually calmed down. And now you can see this guy is very handleable, not behaving defensively at all, just kind of chilling out. You know, he's quite calm. Not even really squeezing that hard. So a lot of times when a boa is acting like this, it's just the instincts of the baby for survival. And if you just, you know, have a little patience and, you know, give them space to adjust, within a few years they will tame down and they can become very calm, handleable animals like this one. And the female is similar. She's calmed down as well. And in fact, I paired them up this year for the first time. I'm not real hopeful that I'll have babies, but it's still possible. Be nice, because I've never bred these North Brazilians before and they're not very common. But we'll just have to see. Sometimes it doesn't always take. The first year I try to breed a new pair, but hopefully it should. And I imagine that the babies will be somewhat defensive for at least a few years if I do produce babies from this pair. This next animal is, I believe, the only one I'm going to show you that's actually bitten me. And I confess, I'm a little bit apprehensive about handling this animal. When I got bitten, you know, probably 4 or 5 years ago, it was more like getting punched with an open mouth, and left quite a bit of black and blue, as well as a lot of blood that was drawn. But, you know, I had her for the video back then, 3 years ago. She did okay. Got a little bit hyper. I thought I'd, you know, bring her in this snake sack, make her calm down a little bit, as, you know, I can take a few deep breaths before I take her out. We'll see how it goes. I might have to abruptly end this segment if she's not easy to control. But she's actually one of my largest boas, if not my largest. She's about 8 feet or so, and she is a Guiana. She's around 10 years old, Eckert bloodline Guiana. Really impressive animal. Let's just see how she acts. She's probably gonna be flopping around everywhere once I get her out. Okay, I'm gonna keep her head away from my face, very important. Okay, there she is. So she's probably gonna flop a bit. Actually, her head is still in the sack. We'll see if we can get her out completely. If she's going to cooperate. I think she doesn't really want to cooperate, so we'll make this segment pretty quick. There you go. Okay, so pretty good sized boa. This is about as big as the true red tails get. They don't always get this big. Holding her head away from me. But she's still quite challenging to handle, as you can see. Trying to breed her this year, I don't think I'm going to be successful. But anyway, Guiana, one of my more challenging boas to handle. And with that, I'm going to put her back in her enclosure before something happens. If you notice, that Guiana female was showing all the signs that she didn't want to be handled. Her body was kind of getting flaccid and kind of spazzing around a bit. And just, you know, when you see a boa like that, you just don't want to handle it. A lot of, or not a lot, but there are a few boas that are just not really handleable pets, and that's just how they are. And unfortunately, you can't really change it in some cases. So if you have a boa like that, just kind of enjoy them, you know, for what they are. But they're probably not going to be a tame pet. And as I mentioned in my previous videos, there are many boas which are highly unlikely to act like that or to be like that, which make great pets. So you probably want to get a boa, you know, of that variety. Okay, on to the next one. This one, you can see I'm not really that concerned about. This is a Honduran firebelly boa. And I actually showed her mother in my previous video. I thought I'd show one of the offspring. This is a 2018 born female. And these Honduran firebellies are kind of unusual as far as their behavior. They're really moody. Often they're very calm, and you can see they don't really move that fast. As you're kind of chill, but then they kind of turn and they'll start hissing. They might strike out at you. Usually they just hiss though, it's more of a bluff. But she's being pretty calm today. But these fire bellies are just a little more unpredictable as far as their behavior than some of the other boas. It goes with the feeding as well. I've got another female who, even though she's now 5 years old, she doesn't really want to eat frozen thawed prey items. And sometimes she doesn't want to eat rats, she wants mice. And sometimes I gotta dangle the mouse, she strikes it and then releases it, and I gotta keep doing that several times. Sometimes I'll go the next day and there's a dead mouse in there she hasn't eaten, so kind of a pain, but they're just a little more picky. But definitely a very distinctive boa. Look at that short head, look at those big, beautiful reddish brown eyes, and the beautiful orange and pinkish side coloration. So really cool boa. I don't have any breeding this year. This female probably will be ready to breed next year, so we'll just have to see. But it'd be great to produce more of these Honduran fire belly boas, which aren't really all that aggressive, but they're just more moody rather than outwardly aggressive. This next boa is also technically not this exact same one from my original video. This is a Pearl Island boa female. This female was born in 2014. The one I had in my video is actually gravid right now, and I'm not going to take out a gravid boa. She just has to incubate her litter, and hopefully I'll have some beautiful babies in a few months. But this female looks and acts very similar to the other one, so I thought I'd grab her. And these Pearl Island boas are definitely unique among locality boas. Their behavioral characteristics are completely different from most other boas. They're much more active than most other boas, and they rarely sit still. They're adapted to a life in the trees, so when you take them out, they're constantly moving around and exploring. Definitely a different type of a handling experience. And the other female that I had several times kind of struck at me and hissed at me when she was younger, but gradually she calmed down over time until now she's pretty similar to this female in terms of handling. She just kind of explores, moves around, but nothing that I would call aggressive. Just, you know, pretty chill. As far as a Pearl Island goes, which, you know, they're probably the least chill boas just based on their instinctive behaviors. But definitely not that challenging to handle. They're also very elongated for boas. They're probably the most elongated type of locality boa. And they get pretty big, you know. They're definitely not dwarfs. I'd say that they get 7-8 feet, but they're more slender. But handling them is more like holding a big colibri because they move around a lot. And like I said, I hope to have some babies from my other female. This female had some babies in 2022, so some of you guys out there have her babies. But they're a really cool boa, and, you know, definitely a different thing for the locality boa collector if you're looking for something a little bit different. And I would say definitely not aggressive. Maybe not the most calm boa for handling, but nothing that poses any kind of difficulty for most people to work with, the Pearl Island or Savoge boa. I've got one more animal from that original video, and she's a true red tail from Suriname. So this is a 2014 born Russell Lafleur bloodline Suriname boa, and her aggression is a little bit different. I wouldn't even really call it aggression. I'll just say her challenges in handling. She's super squeezy, and if you've seen some of my other videos, the true red tails in general are more squeezy than some of the other boas, which means that in general they're not as handleable, or they don't really have as much of the pet qualities as some other boas. By squeezy, I mean they just want to squeeze the hell out of anything that they're on. It's kind of an uneasy feeling, you know, when they're out, they just maybe don't feel very comfortable, and they gotta just squeeze and squeeze. So you can see she's holding me pretty tight. She's kind of spazzing a bit, looking for something to grab against. Sometimes these boas will throw their body almost in knots, you know, to try to squeeze. And no, it's not IBD or any kind of disease. This is just their behavior. And this female, the other characteristic, you can see how small she is. She's about 9 years old, proven breeder. She had her first litter last year. She's only about 5 feet long, and she's not going to get much bigger than this. So true red tails are not all giants. This one is, I'd say, a kind of a medium-sized snake, the same size as like maybe a big king snake or corn snake or something. So they're not all giants. Incidentally, some of her babies are available now if you're looking for a true red tail that's not going to get quite as big. And she's kind of a cool animal. Beautiful colors, and love the pattern on this animal. Just not the most handleable boa just because she likes to squeeze. But cool red tail nonetheless, and I wouldn't really call her aggressive. But red tails do vary. If you've seen my other videos, I take out this other Suriname I have that I call Mr. Pink, who's super chill and laid back. They're just all individuals. And then they also get into moods. You know, sometimes you'll have a really chill boa that is just in a bad mood and it just doesn't want to be handled and it's just acting kind of uncomfortable when you take it out. It's just how boas are. They're just like any other animal. They're all individuals. And you just have to work with them and kind of meet them as best you can. But this is kind of their natural ingrained behavior. They're not going to change all that much. Although, as I've mentioned, they typically do calm down a lot as they get to be adults. So those were some of the boas from my original video 3 years ago. As you can see, most of them have calmed down quite a bit. Now I thought I'd show you some of the next generation of the more challenging boas to handle, animals that have been born since then. And I got one right here, which I'll take out in a sec. She actually tagged me when I was trying to get her out. You know, I thought I'd use this snake sack and kind of protect my hand. She actually struck at the snake sack. You know, her tooth got into my hand a little bit. Not too big of a deal, but hopefully she's kind of got that out of her, but we'll have to see. This is a 2020 born Procalpa Peruvian boa. And I've gotten 3 from this litter I held back. Her brother and sister are actually quite mellow, but this one, for whatever reason, she's just more challenging. You know, she's always kind of striking at me when I open her enclosure to feed her. We'll just keep her away. Beautiful, beautiful animal. Let's just be calm here. So you can see she's kind of extending her body, kind of getting a little bit rigid, just telling me she's not very calm. So I'm going to hold her away from my body. If she does bite me, it's just going to be my hand, not that big of a deal. Incidentally, I've never taken a bite to the face and I want to keep it that way. But maybe she'll calm down. I would expect that she would, but I don't usually handle these animals for obvious reasons, but thought it'd be good to have them on video so you guys can see them, and hopefully they'll calm down. Maybe in a couple of years I'll do another follow-up video and this girl will be nice and mellow, but for now she's just a little challenging. But doing well. She's probably about close to 4 feet long, I'd say, eating medium-sized rats, and definitely will be a nice breeder in a few years for the next generation of these beautiful Peruvian boas. Here's another 2020 holdback boa that's a little bit challenging. This is a crawl key female. And like the Peruvian that I showed you, her siblings, I've got a male and a female that are from the same litter. They're really mellow, but this one is just a little bit cranky. You know, she'll hiss a bit and sometimes strike at me. You know, not quite as cranky as that Peruvian I showed you, but I gotta kind of be careful around her if I don't want to lose any blood. And you know, they're all different, and people always are asking me, you know, what's the temperament on the snake? Is this a good pet? Things like that. You know, it's always with a crawl key boa, sometimes the babies will be very mellow for, you know, starting off as babies. Sometimes they might take them a little bit of a while, like this one. My adults are all really calm, but you know, sometimes it just takes a few years. So as I mentioned before, there's some types of boas that are almost always really mellow, like most Colombian boas. So that's something you want to get if you really are concerned about any kind of biting or aggression / defensiveness, and you really want a calm pet boa. But you know, these guys, they get to be about 4 to 5 feet, so not really hard to manage, even if they are a little bit bitey. And she seems like she's pretty chill today. So I've got a pairing of these guys right now, with any luck. Around July or August, there'll be another litter on the ground. My litter sold out pretty quick last year. Actually, it didn't sell. I got one left. I shouldn't say it sold out, but the demand for crawl key boas is pretty high since they're pretty hard to get. Not quite as high. My cocker key and Tarahumara boas sold out really, really fast. But you know, in general, the demand for dwarf boas is still pretty high. But you know, cool animal, nice dwarf quality boa. Next, another dwarf boa, and this is one just born last summer in 2022. Here's a Tarahumara Mountain boa, a female that was born here. And my original video, I had one of my males who I believe he's in breeding trials right now, if it's the same one I'm thinking of. But thought I'd show you one of the babies, since this female's still a little bit hissy, and the Tarahumara are often kind of hissy as babies, which, as I've mentioned, is a ingrained behavior pattern which makes them more likely to survive their first year of life and not get eaten by a predator. So it's completely normal. They don't strike out a lot. Sometimes they'll kind of strike at you, but it's kind of more of a bluff. You know, if they do kind of make contact, they're not going to bite down like some other boas. They just want you to leave them alone. And they're scared. You got to respect these animals. The reason they're behaving like this is because they're scared of you. They view you as a predator or something that's going to cause them danger, and they're just doing their best to survive. So, you know, we have to really put our boa's needs first. You know, maybe the hissing scares you, or you think the snake is behaving in a bad way or something like that. But no, it's just trying to survive, okay? Please respect your boas. You know, if you can't live with this, again, get a boa that is very mellow, like a Colombian boa. But the Tarahumara typically mellow out after about a year. And even when they're babies, it's really not very challenging to deal with. Really, really cool boa, beautiful colors. Hopefully I'll have some more of these beauties in a few months. They're really popular right now, and there's been a big demand, so hopefully I'll be able to get some of these beautiful Tarahumaras to you guys who really want them in their collections. So please stay tuned. But I'm gonna put her back in her enclosure right now. Next, another boa that's quite challenging to hold, that I've actually added to the collection a few years ago. I believe she's a 2019 or 2020. She's about 3 years old, but just beautiful IMG Hypo boa bred by Al Brown. Gorgeous example of this morph. Actually, she's behaving quite calmly right now, but you can see just how beautifully dark she is, and she's really gotten darker in the last couple of years. This isn't just hypo, she's got IMG, and the IMG usually makes them a little bit lighter, and they retain more kind of a brown saddle pattern, but you can see how dark she is. Everyone is a little different, but just look at that animal. Gorgeous animal. IMG is one of my favorite genes. I think it's definitely one of the coolest genes. It's also incomplete dominant, so you can breed an IMG to a non-IMG, and 50% of them are going to be IMG, which is cool. You don't need to worry about hets. And actually, she's behaving much more calmly than I thought. It's been a while since I've tried to handle her, though, because she's just gotten so reactive when I've taken her out before. And you know, Al told me that the parents of this one, or the mother of this one, was quite aggressive, so that's maybe where she got her behavior pattern. But who knows, she's behaving quite calmly today. Anyway, cool boa. This one is also het for Kyle albino, so I can make IMG Kyle albinos and IMG Kyle Sunglows. Hopefully she should be ready in a few years. But anyway, beautiful IMG boa. I know some of you guys don't like the morph boas, but you gotta really admire just the effects of some of these genes and how impressive they can make the snake look. I just also love the way her eyes stand out. She's got these beautiful reddish brown eyes that stand out against the dark background, and that white belly as well. One more boa for today's video, and this guy I am hesitant to even include because I haven't seen one iota of any kind of defensive or aggressive behavior from him. And he's actually a newer boa to my collection. Let me tell you how I got this guy. A local friend of mine that I've been, communicating with about boas told me he had this Sunglow boa, and the boa was not handleable, and he wanted to see if he could trade for a different boa that might be more handleable. So I actually did want to call Sunglow to add to my call breeding projects, and it worked out well because this guy is, I believe, a 2015 animal, so he's a young adult animal, about 7 feet. And so apparently this guy, when he was younger, was quite defensive and a little bit nippy, and actually struck out a few times. And the guy I got him from was concerned because he wanted him as more of a display animal that would be handleable. He was going to take it to some of the local reptile shows, and kids would handle it and take pictures with it and things like that. And he just didn't want to take the risk that someone might get bitten. So I got this boa a few months ago, and so far he's just been extremely mellow. Nothing at all, no hissing, no striking, takes his food, eats his food quite calmly, not even super aggressive his feeding. He just kind of goes over and chows down. Cool looking boa. This is an adult Sunglow, which is albino plus hypo. And you know, the colors do fade a bit on the adults compared to the babies, but still a cool looking animal. You can see he's got these orange saddle markings, and the saddles are kind of bow tie shaped from the hypo gene. And this kind of pale yellow, kind of a pale orange color. This is background color. But just so far, really mellow animal. So I think, you know, as I mentioned, a lot of times if a boa is aggressive or defensive as a baby, it's going to calm down as an adult. So you just got to give them a little bit of space, be a little bit patient, you know, give them gentle handling on their own terms, and typically they'll calm down and be more handleable. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video and got some tips about how to handle a boa that might be a little bit challenging. As always, shoot me any questions or comments you might have. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your boas.